afternoon. Welcome to the ACLU of Southern California's 25th annual Luncheon. We are so glad to have you here with us today and for everything you do to support us in our fight for civil rights and civil liberties. I would like to acknowledge several people without whom we could not have had this event. Thank you to our Luncheon co-chairs, Stacy Horth-Newbert and Nichelle Carr, and the rest of our event committee members. Thank you to our ACLU staff coordinating this event, and a special thank you to Christian Labano. Thank you also to the waitstaff of the Hotel and Restaurant Employees Union, Local 11. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today was long inhabited by the Tongva people. The ACLU of Southern California has been dedicated to preserving and enhancing our civil liberties and civil rights since 1923. Today, we fight these battles on multiple critical fronts: criminal justice, economic justice, education equity, First Amendment, immigrants' rights, jails and police practices, LGBTQ rights, privacy, racial justice, reproductive justice, and women's rights. And despite the current administration's efforts otherwise, we've scored victories on many of these fronts, including preventing the illegal diversion of taxpayer funds for a border wall to reuniting families torn apart at the border. We could not do this alone. We host this luncheon every year to recognize and thank law firms and individuals who make vital contributions to our fight for civil liberties and civil rights. We also honor those in the media who have chosen to highlight injustice and who stand with the ACLU in our work to achieve a more perfect union. Finally, we are especially grateful to have several of our clients here with us to share some of their stories. Thank you again for joining us today. This luncheon is a time for each and every one of us to be proud of what we have achieved for civil liberties and to recharge for more.
Presenting the Freedom of Information Award, Mohammed Tajsar, National Security Staff Attorney.
When news hit that the administration was banning the entry of people from a host of Muslim countries, communities across the country reacted. They made makeshift signs, they arranged carpools, they descended on airports, and most importantly, they tweeted. Say it loud, say it clear, immigrants are welcome here. And amid the chaos and turmoil, lawyers at the ACLU began to investigate. Whose idea was this? How many people were affected by the ban? And while the press fixed its cameras on the throngs at Tom Bradley International Airport, ACLU lawyers dropped off envelopes, 13 coordinated Freedom of Information Act requests into mailboxes asking the federal government for answers. But we didn't get any. And that's when a crack team of First Amendment and FOIA specialists at Davis Wright Tremaine stepped in and led the effort to sue the government for access to these critical records, and they won. Under the leadership of Tom Burke, Davis Wright litigated 5 of the ACLU's 13 cases across the country and expertly hounded the government for troves of documents that broke open the lid on the Muslim ban. We learned that the Muslim ban affected nearly 2,000 travelers in that first week alone. We learned that agents couldn't figure out how to handle travelers, calling some of them, quote, curveballs. We learned that a chief at Customs and Border Protection here in LA described the chaos by saying, quote, everyone is freaking out and it's causing mistakes, right? They described themselves as being on edge and called the ban a comedy show. Because of this work, we now have a clear picture of the chaotic, hurried, and error-filled implementation of the Muslim ban, and a better roadmap for making sure that it never happens again. Now, nearly 2.5 years since the ACLU lawyers dropped off those requests in the mail, the litigation against the government is ending, and we have the chance to honor those who led our effort. So please, join me in presenting the Freedom of Information Award to Thomas Burke, Aisha Lewis, Greg Heimoff, Brendan Charney, Derek Green, Dan Laidman, Eric Stahl, Rochelle Wilcox of Davis Wright Tremaine.
Davis Wright Tremaine is very appreciative of the recognition, but we're also just very proud to have been asked to do this work. I know I'm the first recipient, but you know this is a difficult time that we're all living in. But I know that we'll all be inspired. As difficult as the time is, there is a large group of people who are willing to fight back, and I'm very proud. And I know my colleagues at Davis Wright are very committed to that continued effort. Thank you very much.
Presenting the Access to Justice Award, Michael Kaufman, the Sullivan Cromwell Access to Justice Senior Staff Attorney, Eva Bitron, Immigrants' Rights Staff Attorney, and Grace Lee, Director of Pro Bono Attorney Programs.
It was at this awards luncheon last year that John Hewlin approached me to ask what Arnold & Porter could do to support our immigrants' rights work. I told him what we had just learned was happening at the Victorville prison. People being held incommunicado for weeks at a time. Lawyers turned away from the prison gates and denied access to their clients. John didn't hesitate. He assembled a team in a day. Then Immigrant Defenders Law Center, a nonprofit that provides legal services to detained immigrants, quickly agreed to serve as a plaintiff. We worked together to file for a temporary restraining order, which the court swiftly granted. The order gave us access to the facility, but once inside, we realized that our work had just begun. Hundreds of detainees were confined in shocking conditions: no medical care, dirty clothing, rancid food. The detainees were facing imminent deportation, but they had no access to attorneys or legal assistance. Immigrant Defenders staff went into overdrive. They were on the ground in Victorville every day, challenging the prison guards to ensure access, conducting critical Know Your Rights trainings and meetings with hundreds of detainees. Grace Lee, our pro bono director, put out a call for attorneys, and you will see shortly in a video, hundreds answered the call. As a result of these heroic efforts, Victorville detainees were finally provided some measure of due process, and the federal government eventually gave up. Faced with the ACLU and its army of pro bono supporters, ICE agreed to stop using the facility. Since that time, no immigrants have been forced to endure the horrors of Victorville Federal Prison. Over the past few years, we've seen the inhumanity of the Trump administration's treatment of immigrants. Families torn apart, a ban targeting members of the Muslim faith, children held in cages, policies driven by xenophobia, racism, and a shocking lack of empathy. But at the same time, so many have come together in the streets, in the airports, and as in Victorville, in the courts to fight for our core constitutional rights and say, we will not stand for this. Today, I'm proud to present the Access to Justice Award to John Hewlin, Jabba Tsichuashvili, and Cassie Haven of Arnold & Porter, and Lindsay Toslowski and me, Sony, of the Immigrant Defenders Law Center.
In the summer of 2018, we received word that the federal government was transferring thousands of immigration detainees from the custody of ICE into federal prisons.
Buses filled with migrants rolled up to the federal prison in Victorville, many of them seeking asylum.
One of our attorneys went out to Victorville and she was denied access. These are men vulnerable to being deported to a country where they have persecution, torture, perhaps they might be killed if they're returned to their home country.
The ACLU has just filed an emergency lawsuit here in Los Angeles. They say
we decided to bring the lawsuit to try to get attorney access on an emergency basis to make sure that the folks who were in there were being seen by their lawyers and had some ability to communicate. Almost immediately, the court issued an order basically saying, the Bureau of Prisons, you have to let attorneys come in and visit with immigration detainees.
These were men who were not coming only from Central America and Mexico, but there were Hindi and Punjabi-speaking detainees, which also impacted what our volunteer pool was going to look like. We recruited hundreds of pro bono attorneys and volunteers. I wasn't really sure what the turnout was going to be. I just knew that we had to try.
The opportunity to volunteer felt like this is the least that I can do, is show up.
I reached out to my mom and I asked her if she'd want to come translate.
No.
No?
He asked me, would you know of anyone who would be interested? I sent him back an email saying that your mother would be interested.
They were from big law firms, small boutique firms, solo practitioners. Within a week, I had hundreds of people sign up.
No beds, no walls, no cages! No beds, no walls, no cages!
In the drive over there, I was thinking, what must they be going through? You're coming to this country and suddenly you're either separated from your family or you find yourself in a federal prison.
They were brought in chains and orange jumpsuits.
When I saw these boys walk out, that was a shocking sight. All these young men had no turban, no nothing.
It's really a
insult to a Sikh man.
It is.
To remove his turban in public, it's an insult.
The fact that somebody was speaking to them in their native language alone brought them to tears.
One gentleman, he said he would rather die in Victorville than be sent back because he knew that as soon as he would be sent back, he would die.
They wanted to run away and come to the land of opportunity. That's like a lot of other people believe.
I come from a family of immigrants, and to me there was an added level of being able to, in some sense, pay it forward.
This is all I want my life to be now, is helping these folks and trying to right as many wrongs as I can.
The government's goal was ultimately to make us too tired to keep going out there, and ultimately we wore them down. The government agreed to just remove all the men from the facility.
One of the most amazing things to come out of this incredibly difficult situation was just the enormous surge of attorney support and solidarity. We hope that we're able to sustain this kind of enthusiasm even in a moment when immigration detention isn't grabbing the headlines.
The more that we can amplify what is happening to immigrants in this country, the more that we can amplify the violations that are happening, that is what makes all of this work worth it for us.
Good afternoon. My name is Jabba Tituashvili from Arnold & Porter. This is my colleague Cassie Havens, and John Yulin sends his thanks from abroad. We just wanted to quickly say how honored we are to accept this award on behalf of Arnold & Porter and our whole team here in LA, where I'm actually really proud to say that I think immigration-related work has become one of the pillars of our pro bono commitment, and we're also very honored to share this award with our co-honorees from IMDEF and everybody else who was so instrumental in this case. We really want to thank the ACLU of Southern California for their work on this case and the crucial work that they're doing every day on behalf of immigrants and so many others. Michael, Grace, Ava, Ahilan, the rest of the ACLU team did a really incredible job of jumping into action in Victorville. I think thanks to their leadership, we vindicated the constitutional rights of hundreds of people who were held incommunicado in awful conditions by our government. I think the stories that we just heard, the relief that we obtained here, demonstrate that in the face of these abuses, we lawyers and non-lawyers alike can really make an impact and make a difference. And we just have to answer the call. So we're grateful to the ACLU of Southern California for putting out that call. We look forward to continuing to answer it, and we're hopeful that the people here today and so many others will too. Thank you.
Last June, when we heard that immigrants, including fathers who had recently been separated from their children at the border, were being held in Victorville, the team at IMDEF was outraged. We immediately went, attempted to gain access, and were physically intimidated and thrown off the property. And from the parking lot, our very first call was to the ACLU of Southern California. The team jumped into action, got us inside, and unfortunately, once we got inside, we saw the conditions were exactly what we feared. But this lawsuit not only allowed us to enter the facility, it allowed us to provide services to hundreds of immigrants who were being held there. It allowed us to shine a light on the human rights abuses that were happening in Victorville. It allowed us to give hope to people in what seemed like an absolutely, desperately hopeless situation. And most importantly, it helped us to shut the whole damn thing down. On behalf of Immigrant Defenders Law Center's entire team, I'm really proud to accept this award. Thank you.
As you saw in the video, all of this was made possible because of the hundreds of volunteer attorneys and interpreters who answered the call to action. We have a number of those volunteer attorneys and interpreters with us today. I would ask that they please stand and be recognized, and if all of you could join me in applauding their service and their commitment to justice.
Please welcome to the stage Hector Villagra, Executive Director of the ACLU of Southern California.
Frederick Douglass said, "There is a prophet within us, forever whispering that behind the scene lies the immeasurable unseen." He earned the right to say these words and have them remembered. He was born and lived for 20 years as a slave and nearly 9 more as a fugitive. But he became a powerful advocate for abolition and women's rights, and ultimately a prophet of freedom and equality. Now, these are undoubtedly difficult times for anyone who cares about human rights. It's hard to listen to the prophet within, to hear the voice that isn't limited by the world around us, the voice that imagines a more just world. But we must listen. We did it in response to the Muslim ban. We did it in response to the family separations, and we must do it now in response to the relentless attack on women and reproductive freedoms. Missouri is threatening to become the first state since 1973 without a single abortion provider. 5 other states have only 1 abortion clinic left. Louisiana, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Ohio already have enacted bills barring abortion as early as the 5th or 6th week of pregnancy. That's before most people even know they're pregnant. Can you imagine this in any other area of healthcare, where your ability to receive treatment is limited by when you were diagnosed? And chances are you wouldn't even know you had the condition by the time it was too late to receive the treatment you needed? Alabama's gone even further, outlawing virtually all abortions, even in cases of rape or incest. These abortion restrictions are not a reason to give up. They are a call to action. And the ACLU is fighting back. With so much at stake, we're fighting with everything we've got. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held for 46 years that the freedom to decide whether and when to have a child is one of the most intimate and personal decisions a person can make. And it is therefore central to the liberty protected by the 14th Amendment. This is the law, and these states are breaking it. So the ACLU is preparing to sue Georgia. We've filed lawsuits against Ohio, Kentucky, and Alabama, and we've already obtained orders blocking the Kentucky and Ohio bans. We know this won't be easy. We will team up, as always, with Planned Parenthood and other providers, but we're also developing new partnerships. We're proud to say that Netflix, Warner Brothers, and many in entertainment have promised to support the ACLU. Beyond litigation, we've got to make sure people's voices are heard loud and clear. A large majority of Americans, 2 out of every 3 Americans, oppose overturning Roe versus Wade. So in Missouri, the ACLU has submitted a petition to bring the state's abortion ban before voters. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to gather 100,000 signatures, we're going to put the issue on the ballot, and we're going to get that abortion ban vetoed. But we've got to be vigilant in California too. The UC system recently proposed a dangerous partnership with Dignity Health, a Catholic hospital chain we've sued multiple times because it denies abortion and contraception services, and even health care for transgender people. We worked with partners to mobilize faculty and students, and we won. We stopped the merger. As daunting as things look now, let's remember, they also looked that way in Douglas's time. And they did so too when a small group of people came together to form the ACLU. When we were founded in 1920 by women and men who fully believed in defending the Bill of Rights for everyone, their vision had no basis in reality. The Bill of Rights was just a document. People were jailed for expressing anti-war views, racial segregation was the law of the land, and sex discrimination was firmly institutionalized. Yet that handful of social workers, activists, and lawyers who couldn't even fill a table here today, and who many dismissed as dreamers, proved prophetic. Over the next 99 years, the organization they created would routinely take on states, Congress, and the president and win. The ACLU led and continues to lead a rights revolution. But we can't do it without your help. To fight every egregious policy, to hold elected officials accountable to the people they serve at every level of government in every state in the nation, we need your financial partnership. So I ask you today to be as generous as possible. On your table in front of you are donation cards. Please fill them out and place them in the glass bowls. Listen to the prophet within. The voice that says we must end federal discrimination against Muslims and welcome people of all religions. The voice that says we must protect the rights of immigrants and refugees and keep families together. The voice that says we must protect abortion access and ensure women's freedom and equality. If you need any inspiration, think about the lone abortion providers in Missouri and Kentucky. And think of the people who have to travel long distances only to face protesters to get the health care they need. But you don't need to look beyond this room to find inspiration. We recognize today several clients who took a brave stand against injustice. You're going to hear more about them later. And of course, there are the 5 men that we honor today who have spent so much of their lives fighting for truth and justice. Our media, our criminal justice system, our society failed them. But they persisted. They proved their innocence. They exposed our society's profound bias. They fought to tell their own story. And now it is finally and powerfully being told. Antron McCrae, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, we see you. We honor you. In closing, I ask you to stand with the ACLU and support us today. This isn't just an ask, it's an invitation to listen to the prophet within, to be part of the ACLU, to make the promise of liberty and justice real for everyone. Thank you.
I ended up in county jail for violation of probation. We didn't have the same rights as the straight population. I wanted to take classes, I wanted to participate to help better myself. The sergeant was like, you're not gonna be able to work because of where we have you classified as. I'm like, so you're telling me because I'm transgender I can't work? He's like, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. And that's when I was determined to do something. I started writing everybody I could, including the ACLU. When I received the letter from Melissa, I was like, something's gonna change. We were able to come to a settlement agreement that involved a lot of policy changes. We're gonna be receiving everything that everybody else gets. From parenting classes to job training to high school or GED. You're stripped of everything already. You're stripped of your freedom. And then they strip you even further because of your sexual orientation or your gender identity. And it wasn't okay, so I wasn't accepting that as an answer. I was not accepting no as an answer, I wasn't accepting it at all.
Presenting the LGBTQ Equality Award, Amanda Goad, the Audrey Ermis Director, LGBTQ Gender and Reproductive Justice Project.
While no one expects doing time in jail to be fun, it's a problem when some people endure an especially punitive experience solely because of their identity. In San Bernardino County, for many years, people who identified as gay, bisexual, or transgender were denied access to the programming that made jail life a little more tolerable for their straight and cisgender counterparts, everything from life skills classes to religious services to work for pay. Meanwhile, the county called the unit where this community was housed the Alternative Lifestyles Tank, or ALT. Both the name and the staff's hostile attitude were straight out of last century. In 2014, a group of intrepid people housed in the unit contacted both the ACLU SoCal and the renowned civil rights law firm of Kay, McLean, Bednarski, and Litt. We joined forces and began a 5-year quest to achieve equality and dignity for people doing time in the ALT. Soon, we filed the McKibben versus McMahon class action lawsuit on behalf of about 900 gay and bi men and transgender women. Years into the legal fight, we entered mediation and eventually hammered out a deal. Now, the ALT has been rebranded the Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Intersex, or GBTI unit, and programming is to be equally available there as it is in other units of the jail. Sexual orientation and gender identity will no longer be valid reasons to deny anyone access to an educational, spiritual, or work opportunity. Specific protections for trans people ensure that their own views of the safest housing placement are given serious weight, and no one is assigned to the GBTI unit without their informed consent. The county also agreed to retrain its staff and to pay nearly $1 million in damages to the class. We look forward to securing final court approval of the settlement this August. We owe a huge debt to the 16 people who served as class representatives, exposing themselves to a high risk of retaliation while inside, devoting significant time to working with us once released. Along the way, we lost 2 of those class reps, and we honor today the memories of Christopher Crawford and named plaintiff Dan McKibben. But happily, we are joined here today by Sean Lent, Veronica Pratt, Tim Walker, and Tahish White. ACLU SoCal could only secure this result by partnering with Lindsay Battles, Barry Litt, Dave McLean, and Julia White from KMBL. We honor their contributions today with the LGBTQ Equality Award.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave McLean of the law firm Kay, McLean, Bednarski, and Litt. And it's an honor and privilege to stand before y'all. We at Kay, McLean, Bednarski, and Litt are humble to the core, And I wanted to mention and especially point out Julia White, our intrepid paralegal, who's been fighting the fight in civil rights for, I don't know, probably longer than I've been born. So, and I also wanted to thank Lindsay Battles, who's hiding. She's my partner, and she can tear into a set of facts and organize a case like no other person I know. And of course, Barry Litt, who everyone here probably knows, who's, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is the best civil rights class action attorney in the country, bar none. And he's the genius behind Kay McLean, Benarski, and Litt. If you want to know about the history of civil rights in Los Angeles, ask Connie Rice, Carol Sobel, Barry Litt, and remembering Ramona Ripston, may she rest in peace, and the attorneys and staff at the ACLU of Southern California. I really want to thank the ACLU of Southern California, who partnered with us on this case. Without them, we couldn't have done it, and I'm hopeful that we can partner with them in the future as well. They had their eyes on the ball in this case, and this is a case that involved damages, and we were able to get damages and financial compensation for our clients, but we also got injunctive relief, and the ACLU spearheaded that, and with their experience, they knew how to fashion injunctive relief so that gay inmates in jail would get the same rights, gay and transgender inmates would get the same rights as straight inmates in jail. That seems really common sense, but that's not what's happening across the country, and that's not what was happening in San Bernardino County Jail. I mean, just take for a second, imagine being arrested, being in jail, being locked up, and you're not only fighting your criminal case, but you're fighting your surroundings. You're afraid that you're going to be beaten up or killed because you're gay and transgender, and that's not right. And the guards themselves are telling you, you have two options. You can go to general population, but we won't protect you, or you can go into isolation. And in isolation, you're going to be locked up in your cell, and you're not going to get the same jobs, programming, drug rehabilitation as the straight inmates. And when we heard that, and when the ACLU heard that, we decided to do something about it. We decided to change the jail conditions in San Bernardino, and hopefully that'll help across the country. And, you know, we told them that you can't do this because of someone's gender identity or sexual orientation, because what you do to the least of us, you do to all of us. And so our clients, and I have to say, were so brave to take on the prison establishment, where they continue to be vulnerable, subject to victimization, harassment, and retaliation. The idea that their rights could be taken away in order to protect them is ridiculous on its face. But we would not have ever been able to challenge it without building on the victories from past ACLU cases regarding marriage equality and LGBTQ discrimination issues. So we are so grateful to the ACLU of Southern California for the progress that they made this case and settlement possible. And I really want to thank the ACLU of Southern California and our class representatives that are here, including Timothy Walker, Veronica Pratt, Jahish White, and Sean Lent. And Sean Lent was the partner of Dan McKibben, the person who this lawsuit was named after and passed away. And I'm very proud of them for risking everything and standing up for what is right. And I would just like to say on just one little personal note, because I wanted to give a shout out to my wife and 3 children, Katie, Emily, and Julianne, because what they taught me is that everyone should be judged as an individual. And that's what this lawsuit taught me. And all we're asking is that our clients be judged as individuals, and we hope that this settlement will help in jails so our gay and transgender clients and everyone can be treated as individuals. So thank you very much.
Presenting the Humanitarian Award, Eva Bitron, Immigrants' Rights Staff Attorney.
I'm thrilled to present this year's Humanitarian Award to Sidley Austin for their work on behalf of Guadalupe Plasencia. Ms. Plasencia is a U.S. citizen, a grandmother, and a businesswoman who lives in San Bernardino. In December of 2016, she was arrested without cause by the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department and handed over to ICE, all despite the fact that she stated over and over again that she was a U.S. citizen. After her arrest, Ms. Plasencia became an advocate. She worked with organizers from our office to pass SB 54, the California Values Act. Her testimony before the California legislature was critical in passing a law that now bars collaborations, like the one in her case, between state law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. In addition to her advocacy, Ms. Plasencia brought a lawsuit against both San Bernardino County and ICE. And it's here that our attorney honorees played their crucial role. A tireless team of lawyers from Sidley drafted her complaint, successfully defended against dismissal, and wrangled unruly opposing counsel during discovery. What impressed me most was how these lawyers brought their full selves to the case. Their keen awareness of the injustice that Ms. Plasencia lived informed their every move. Alexandria Ruiz lent a compassionate ear and embraced with kindness even that most boring of tasks, document collection. During oral argument, Ali Doherty highlighted the humanity of all of those arrested and imprisoned by ICE and the trauma this can bring. Waqas Akmal and James Perez used every conversation with the government to drive home the stakes of this case for Ms. Plasencia and others like her. These outstanding lawyers ultimately steered the case to a fabulous resolution, a $55,000 settlement for Ms. Plasencia. Our honorees fought to affirm the principle that each of us, no matter our language ability, country of origin, or the color of our skin, is afforded meaningful constitutional protections against arbitrary detention. We are immeasurably thankful for their work. Please join me in presenting this year's Humanitarian Award to Sidley.
And the ACLU for honoring Sidley Austin with this year's Humanitarian Award. My name is Alexandria Ruiz, and I am very privileged to be here with you today to accept on behalf of my colleagues and the firm. Pardon me. During her detention, an ICE officer told Ms. Plasencia, "Here, you are nobody. You are nothing." These 7 words were meant to dehumanize and demoralize Ms. Plasencia, and instead they set her on her path to prove to those who detained her that she was somebody, and much, much more. The outcome of this case is a testament to her efforts to ensure that others will not suffer similar injustices, merely because of how they look, the language they speak, or what their last name may be. Our work on behalf of Ms. Plasencia was truly a team effort. So many within the Sidley family, attorneys and staff alike, rallied behind Ms. Plasencia's cause, and we remain grateful for their contributions and support. Thank you to Adriana Wong and Eva Bitran, members of the ACLU team, who were pivotal in this case's outcome. Finally, thank you to Ms. Plasencia, and though she may not be here today, her grace, courage, and strength, as well as her unwavering commitment to obtain justice, has been deeply humbling and truly inspiring. She has left an indelible mark on the lives of each of her attorneys. We did our jobs, but she made the difference. Thank you.
Presenting the Immigrant Justice Award, Ahilan Aralanantham, Senior Counsel.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. In the fall of 2017, the Temporary Protected Status Program was barely on the radar of most people concerned about the Trump administration's war on our nation's immigrants. People were focused on the Muslim ban, on the end of DACA, or the pardon of Joe Arpaio, the famous Sheriff Joe from Arizona. But boy, did that change quickly. Over the course of just a few short months, the Trump administration attempted to terminate the immigration status of 400,000 people under the TPS program. Many of them had lived here for decades. These actions brought fear and anxiety into American homes all across the nation. 18 months later, though, all those families still have their immigration status as a result of two related lawsuits. And the TPS holders as a community have built a huge amount of political power, so much so that President Trump himself proposed legislation offering them status in return for funding his wall. Would the people here today who have TPS status and also their family members please stand to be recognized? Orlando. That the TPS holders have protected themselves thus far is a testament to the hard work of many people from many organizations, but none more so than the TPS Alliance, an umbrella organization led by TPS holders with committees in all 50 states, the National Day Labor Organizing Network, with its rare combination of brilliant attorneys and superb organizers, some of whom are actually the exact same people, and the law firm Sidley Austin, who time and time again, especially in these last 3 years, have risen to the occasion to protect immigrant communities from this administration's ongoing attacks. So please join me in honoring these 3 organizations with our Immigrant Justice Award.
It's an honor to receive this award for immensely rewarding work. We're especially honored that the award recognizes a partnership between lawyers and organizers in which together we've done more than either of us could have done alone. Our litigation won temporary legal protection for hundreds of thousands of people. But even more importantly, it furthered a larger fight for permanent protection, a fight that is being led by TPS holders themselves.
When Donald Trump said he did not want people from shithole countries inside the United States, he was literally speaking about TPS holders, neighbors and family members who relied on humanitarian protection that was upended with a stroke of a pen and without justification. So we are humbled to work in support of TPS holders who are on the front lines confronting the racism and xenophobia of this administration, and humbled to share this honor today with the National TPS Alliance, an organization made up of TPS holders and their U.S. citizen children, leading the fight to recognize TPS holders' right to remain in the country they call home and to win the permanent relief that can only come from Congress.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Orlando Cepeda. I am a TPS beneficiary from El Salvador. And I have lived here for over 3 decades. TPS was terminated by our current administration. But 2 years ago, we decided to fight back. We started committees throughout the country, local and national. I am so proud of every TPS holder because they always fighting and working hard. We work in courts, streets, and Congress. But none of that is possible without the support that we have received from our allies, like Andy Long, Carece en LA, the wonderful team of legal team of LCLU. Just to mention some, and I thank you all on behalf of the National TPS Alliance. God bless you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your support. My name is Andrew Talaya, and I'm an associate at Sidley. It's been my privilege to work on this case alongside my dedicated colleagues from complaint through appeal, and it's my honor to accept the Immigrant Justice Award on behalf of my firm. We thank our clients, the TPS holders, their families, their children, for their courage during this litigation. Their stories and their strength inspire us every day. We thank our co-counsel at the ACLU and Endalon for sharing their wisdom and experience. Their guidance at each step along the way was invaluable. The TPS litigation has impacted hundreds of thousands of people who call this country home. The scale of the case is humbling, and receiving this award is flattering. But in my view, the greatest reward has been watching so many individuals reclaim their voices and find some peace of mind. There's more work to be done, of course, but every day since November 2nd, 2018 has been a victory. We thank you for this opportunity and for the recognition.
Please welcome poet and activist Alicia Wise.
A womb is a womb, is someone's womb, is theirs, is theirs, is joy, is hurt, is palms upon waist, is a spill, is a cleanup when ready, when never is, lights on is, lights off is, prayed on, never prayed for when empty, is not a tomb when emptied, is a church, is not religion, is not confessional, is a decision, alone, perhaps split by time, by necessity, by circumstance, by nobody's business, is larger than a white cis man's clenched fist, hence his ego, hence the signature, hence the president, hence the womb says enough. A womb is a weapon? No, but the one with the womb can be, or already is, a hound can sniff entitlement from beneath a three-piece suit, shouts, this has never been about the unborn, only control, only a specific America, shout, this has never not been about the body, defiant body, liberated body in America, shouts, this body is a home and you are not welcome here, never is an abortion not a right, shout, this body is a home and my freedom has the master key, never is my well-being not a right, pro-choice is not criminal, pro-choice is not criminal, the inability to have a choice is, as pre-1973, the ones who outlived, the ones who stored their suffering in a locket, ask if they be willing to go back. They would not go back. We will not go back. We will not be humans who have already endured so much life to be told if and how to bring in more life. We will not believe it, grieve it, more than you pretend to grieve what you do not understand. Release your hand off our liberty and use it to write us a check. For our labor. Thank you.
My name's Robert Mitchell. I was raised in Bakersfield. In this community, we know that there's racism within the police department. I thought to myself, man, I just need to start learning the law because they're pulling people over for absolutely no reason.
A discrimination lawsuit has been filed against Bakersfield police and the city of Bakersfield after a local man claims his civil rights were violated.
Me and my friends, as we're arriving to the fast trip, we see Bakersfield police officers just sitting in their patrol car. As we pull out, officers following us. I knew that it was gonna be time to record.
We pulled over on this lovely day.
They began to ask all the occupants of the vehicle, do you have identification? I stood my ground and told them.
I'm right here, I don't give names. I invoke my 4th and 5th Amendment right. I'm not suspected of committing a crime. It doesn't.
Well, unfortunately, they searched me, and that was a violation of my 4th Amendment right.
Why is that? Am I being
Because you're not going to have a phone on you.
What am I being arrested for hindering investigation?
How did I hinder an investigation?
Because you did.
When I stepped foot out of jail, I knew that I had to receive justice. I got a phone call one day from Adriana Wong. I'll never forget that day. She began to explain to me that the ACLU will be representing me and they'll be filing a federal lawsuit.
The lawsuit says Mitchell was jailed and no charges were ever filed.
I'm a father of 3 beautiful children. I don't want them to live in a society where we have to be stopped and identified for not even committing a crime. I want them to feel free.
Presenting the Civil Liberties Award, Adriana Wong, Police Practices Staff Attorney.
The right to speak, the right to remain silent, the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. These are fundamental rights at the core of what it means to live in a free society. But in order for these rights to have any meaning, we have to stand up for them. Robert Mitchell had the courage to exercise his rights. When Bakersfield police stopped the car he was riding in under the pretense that there was an air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror and began questioning everyone inside, Robert asserted his rights. He declined to answer the officers' questions and exercised his right to film them. For that, they arrested him. But that didn't stop Robert. He reached out to the ACLU, and through the skilled, vigorous advocacy of Kirkland and Nellis attorneys Michael Shipley and Matthew Gamson, brought a lawsuit against the Bakersfield police to vindicate his rights. That lawsuit resulted in a 5-figure settlement and, more importantly to Robert, finally brought police accountability to Bakersfield. Robert Mitchell and his wife Tiana have joined us here today. Please stand so we can acknowledge you. Thanks for standing up for us, Robert. Kirkland and Nellis stood up for our rights in many other ways this year. Kirkland's Reprographics team helped assemble hundreds of Know Your Rights materials in different languages so immigration detainees imprisoned in Victorville would also be able to assert their rights. And Kirkland attorneys like Dilvir Vahali, who you saw in the video previously, made the trek to the Victorville prison to provide legal assistance to detained individuals. For all these contributions, we are honored to present to Kirkland the 2019 Civil Liberties Award.
So, Bakersfield police officers pulled over a car in which Robert Mitchell was a backseat passenger. Apparently, they were able to observe that the tires had inadequate tread, even though it was dark and the car was moving. And also, there was an air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror, which is apparently illegal, or so they said. Anyway, whatever pretextual reason the police had to pull over the car,
didn't give them any basis to believe that any of the passengers had done anything wrong. 40 years ago, the Supreme Court held in Brown versus Texas that police can't arrest you for refusing to identify yourself if they don't have reasonable suspicion you've committed a crime. Mr. Mitchell knew that. The Bakersfield police did not. Mr. Mitchell spent a night in jail anyway. Kirkland was proud to team up with Adriana and her team at the ACLU to get Mr. Mitchell the justice he so badly deserved. I'd like to thank Kirkland associate Matt Gamson, who ably handled almost all of Kirkland's work in the case, and our paralegal Mike Tekunwewe for all his valuable support. In addition to important pro bono legal work, Kirkland aims to support the work of our partner legal aid organizations in as many ways as we can. Since last summer, Kirkland lawyers have been representing immigrants detained under current administration's zero-tolerance immigration policies. At the same time, when the ACLU of Southern California reached out to us to find a way to quickly print Know Your Rights materials for the hundreds of detainees at Victorsville, Kirkland was ready to lend a hand. Our reprographics team swung into action to prepare the materials. We know that small contributions like printing materials can make a world of difference to our partner legal aid organizations who are continually stretched to address increasing need. So thank you for the award and the opportunity. We look forward to working together on the next case to come.
Please welcome to the stage Stacy Horth-Newbert and Nichelle Carr, ACLU Foundation of Southern California board members and annual luncheon co-chairs.
Hello everyone, I'm Stacy.
And I'm Nichelle. And we have an important message for you.
Justice costs money.
You have heard incredibly inspiring stories this afternoon about the work that the ACLU of Southern California has done in the last year and the clients whose lives have benefited from our work. But justice costs money.
You've heard about the threats ahead of us: reproductive freedom, police accountability, immigration, trans rights, and so many others. But justice costs money.
So please support justice. Before you leave, please fill out your donation cards and put them in the glass bowls on your table. Please give as generously as you can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is my mom here? It's just us. You and us.
Who you were in the park with?
I don't know names. I just got lost.
Where did you see the lady?
One lady.
The female jogger was severely beaten and raped. Every black male who was in the park last night is a suspect. I need all of them.
What's going on with my son? Your son was involved in a rape in Central Park.
Wait a minute. Wait a second.
They saw you rape the lady. I didn't see a lady or hit anyone. I didn't see any lady. Kevin. I didn't see any lady.
I want to see my son right now. Right now.
Whatever they said I did, I didn't.
I know.
Zoning on the road.
Nothing these boys state matches the central facts of the crime. All we need is for one to tie this whole thing together.
These tapes are not as clean as the state would have you believe.
There is injustice happening here.
There is not one shred of evidence.
Imagine the frenzy of these teenagers ripping off her
They
clothes.
are innocent of these crimes.
They are guilty.
They're doing us like this.
What other way they ever do us?
I've been having these dreams. I keep hearing these footsteps. And they coming closer and closer. That's me. Coming to bring you home.
They said if I went along with it, that I could go home, and that's all I wanted.
The police will do anything. Lie on us, they will lock us up, they will kill us.
This is my life. I don't think we should admit to something that we didn't do.
Okay, we keep fighting.
Introducing actor, producer, and activist Michael B. Jordan, who will present the Social Responsibility in the Media Award and the Roger Baldwin Courage Awards.
Man, every time I watch that trailer, it does something to me. As a black man, that could have been me. I'm 32 years old, and I remember when that happened. I got a chance to, I was talking to Ava DuVernay last night, and I was talking to her about the incredible job that she did portraying these stories of these young men. And it's art, and it's real life. It's all good. And I'm honored to be here today to present these awards to you guys. It was East Coast news, but a familiar story to anyone growing up black in America. Mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, cousins. They would sit us down for the be careful talk. It's dangerous in America when you're living in a black body. We learned about Emmett Till, the Gen 6, Sean Bell, and we learned about the young men who were called the Central Park Five. We didn't know their names, but we knew their ages. 15, 14, 16, the same age we were. They could be us. In 1989, police found the body of a young white woman in Central Park, covered in blood and left for dead after a sexual assault. Weeks later, when Trisha Miley awakened from a coma, she was unable to recall her attack, but the police had already been rounding up suspects, questioning black and brown teenagers who had been in Central Park that night. They focused their interrogation tactics on the five boys in particular. 4 of those teenagers did not know each other when they were arrested. I repeat, 4 of those boys did not know each other when they were arrested. They were all innocent kids. None of them have ever been in any trouble with the law, and neither had their families. They didn't know how to talk to the cops. And when the New York City detectives used their techniques, if you just tell us what we want to hear and you can go home, the boys believed them. The police said they could make their problem go away if they just confessed. And after over 24 hours with no food, no sleep, no water, no family, no phone calls, no attorneys, the boys did. Once they were reunited with their families and represented by counsel, those statements were recanted and seemed coerced, but it was too late. The media had already had its story. Newspapers kept the city on edge, labeling these boys a wolf pack, super predators. An ambitious real estate developer named Donald Trump, our president, spent $85,000 on full-page ads in 4 city newspapers calling for the execution of these black and brown boys. Only the death penalty will do. That's our president. At the trial, the prosecutor called them animals. The boys' confessions were all over the place. Nothing matched up, no physical evidence tied them to the crime scene. There was no DNA evidence at all. But lack of evidence didn't matter. These boys were presumed guilty by their skin. All 5 were convicted and sentenced between 6 and 13 years in prison. It would take a decade. In 2002, before the actual criminal stepped forward to confess the crime, he insisted that he acted alone and confirmed his statement with DNA evidence. With his confession, these convicted teenagers became exonerated men. And now, 3 decades after their arrest, the story of the Central Park Five is the subject of When They See Us, a Netflix miniseries created by the dynamic filmmaker Ava DuVernay. DuVernay's vision sees everything: the police misconduct and inherent bias, The prosecutorial overreach and race-biting rhetoric and racist dog whistles of politicians and would-be politicians, the unethical abuse of media, and the presumption of guilt that attaches to black and brown bodies. But beyond all that, DuVernay asked us to see the men, the women, and the children caught in the criminal justice system, and for us to consider them as, in her words, living, breathing people with thoughts, memories, and feelings, and also families. For her vision and her determination that we might be seen as who we are, the ACLU of Southern California is honored to present the Social Responsibility in the Media Award to Ava DuVernay, the creator of the Netflix miniseries When They See Us. Unfortunately, Ava is unable to be here for today, but I believe Yusuf Salam is going to be accepting her award on her behalf. So a round of applause for Yusuf.
Wow. You know, it never gets old being honored and celebrated in this way. I'm happy to have my brothers with me today. I'm one of the exonerated 5. And I'm honored to be here to accept this award on behalf of the extraordinary Ava DuVernay. She is a writer, director, producer, and film distributor. She is an Emmy, a BAFTA, and a Peabody Award winner, and an Academy Award nominee. And she is our friend. Much of Ava's work has focused on the criminal justice system. From the humanist flourishes of her film Middle of Nowhere, depicting a woman coming to terms with her husband's incarceration, to the deep dive of her film The 13th, which examined the system and its insidious roots in the 13th Amendment, which I dare say needs redress. You know, how can such a horrific practice of slavery be accepted as the punishment of a crime? The implications vibrate differently when black and brown bodies read those words. They're talking about our ancestors. Never again. When They See Us is a natural step forward in the progression of what Ava has done. It takes the domestic and legal elements of those two films and meshes them into a definitive 5-hour portrait of a miscarried justice. No other filmmaker seems quite attuned to these currents, to have combined them in such a way. I applaud and I salute Ava for her attention. After decades of being known as the Central Park Five, We thank Ava for acknowledging our humanity and telling our story with honesty and factual representation. We were boys when we were sent to prison. Just boys. We were boys when we were sent to prison. And we were men when we came out. You know, we had to struggle to break the label that the media gave us. Many of us stumbled forward, falling on our face at times. We thank Ava for her tireless efforts. I'm not ashamed to cry in front of you. These are tears of pain. Yes, sir. These are tears of pain, but these are tears of joy. We are the heroes of this story. Yes. So we thank Ava for her tireless efforts to break that moniker. We would like to also acknowledge the producers and the teams who made this possible to bring our story to millions of people through Netflix, and to express our deepest admiration to those actors and actresses who took the challenging roles portraying us and our families on screen. It wasn't an easy task to harness those emotions, and we are profoundly grateful. And on behalf of Ava, we would like to thank the ACLU for this honor. This organization, which will celebrate its centenary next year, has been in the forefront of the fight to protect the civil rights and civil liberties of people all throughout this country. And their work in addressing and combating racial injustice, mass incarceration, police brutality, prosecutorial misconduct, and other issues that Ava raises in the telling of our story merits all of our support. Thank you.
That's courage. In the movies, courage could be loud, full of declarations and explosions and special effects. In real life, courage is something different. It's quiet. Courage means strength of heart. Courage makes it possible for a man to suffer adversity, to persevere, and to prevail. The whole time that these men were incarcerated, they never changed their story. They never wavered. They insisted of their innocence, even as they did their time. 4 were released at the end of their sentences. only to encounter the world as convicted felons and registered sex offenders, unable to find work or secure housing. They had lost their childhood, their reputations. They could have fallen prey to a number of further hardships, and yet they held it together because they were good men and they had strong hearts. When their names were cleared, they became advocates for the criminal justice reform and for the wrongfully accused. They shared their story. They shared their ordeal. I had said that we knew the ages of the Central Park Five, but today we know their names. Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana Jr., Antron McCray, and Corey Wise. I believe Yusuf, he's coming back up here, he's going to speak on their behalf. And on behalf of the ACLU of Southern California, it's my personal privilege to present the Roger Baldwin Courage Award to these men.
My brothers. You know, I was thinking about what to say, and part of what I thought about was the poetry that I write. And I thought it would be appropriate to share this poem with you today. It's called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." I might need to change that title because I heard that we're in over 190 plus countries. Man, the revolution will not be televised. I can remember when that statement made me sad inside. Too young to be in it. Now I couldn't even see it. Why? Why couldn't the revolution be televised? The last poets, Gil Scott-Heron. As I grew up, I began to see. They left theirs, and I too wanted to leave a mark on history. A man in half, and I wanted to bask in that task that set men free. But a revolution, the revolution, is where I knew I had to be. The revolution will not be televised. They didn't want to display the victory of those quote unquote lesser men. The revolution will not be televised. Smile, I know, because we are the revolution. You know, when we learned that the ACLU had created this special award presented to us today, we were incredibly moved and honored to accept this. It is a recognition of the very long and difficult fight to prove our innocence, to achieve truth and justice in our case, and to reclaim our humanity and our dignity. All this from a justice system that tried to take these two things from us. The Roger Baldwin, whom this award is named, was one of 3 founders of the ACLU and many of his organization's landmark cases took place under his direction. So it is a great honor to be the inaugural recipients of this award, inspired by this great man, who was a true champion and a crusader for human and civil rights. Our story is a story of an egregious miscarriage of justice. And it's also the story of many others who have gone through similar things, accused and incarcerated and paid a terrible price of losing the years of their lives in prison. Our struggle to obtain our freedom and clear our names is a struggle that others have faced every day. This is a 30-year battle. I know it was said before, but I want folks to understand and remember that we were 14, 15, and Corey was 16. We were just babies. And I say that because I have 10 children of my own, and as I look at them, I say to myself, wow, this is what a 16-year-old looks like? We were just babies. And the system ran over us with the spike wheels of justice. Corey said it so well, and I echo his words. He said, when Donald Trump took out that full-page ad in all of major New York City's newspapers, calling for our execution, he placed a bounty on our head. They had published our names, our phone numbers, and our addresses in New York City's newspapers. Now, if you can imagine the horror of that, just step backwards once to the 1950s. We would have become modern-day Emmett Tills. It was almost as if they were trying to get someone from the darkest enclaves of society to come into our homes, drag us from our beds, and hang us from trees in Central Park. As a matter of fact, on the heels of what Donald Trump had done came another racist named Pat Buchanan. And what he said specifically in the papers was that the eldest one, who was 16, Corey, should be hung from a tree in Central Park. He wrote this in the paper. And that the others of us should be stripped naked and horsewhipped. We are miracles. We are miracles today. I mean, we've been struggling to find our way back to humanity. We've been trying to put things that are gone back into our lives, and it's been a challenge. But I'm honored that we are being honored in this way, and I thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The Exonerated Five. Thank you again, man.
To conclude the program today, please welcome back Connie Cheng. President of the ACLU of Southern California.
Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you were all as inspired as I was by our program today. If you are an attorney and you would like to work with us, please reach out to our pro bono director, Grace Lee, and please make plans to join us for our Bill of Rights dinner on Sunday, November 17th. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.